I am your host, Gary Puckett, and thank you for joining us. My guests today are Superintendent Todd Bowling and the Director of Curriculum for Grades K through 5, Stephanie Kessling. Todd, Stephanie, I welcome both of you to SuperChat. Todd, recently on a previous episode of SuperChat, we had discussed the topic of EdChoice, and this is an interesting one, and it presents its own dynamic, a challenge. Could you remind our listeners just what is EdChoice before I go into some additional questions?
EdChoice kind of took off in that the rules for how you qualify for EdChoice changed. And what EdChoice is truly supposed to be about is to provide students in poverty and low-performing school districts a chance to take vouchers to pick a school of their choice. What it ended up being is an unfair system on how schools were evaluated. And so the number of schools qualifying was going to go from 265 to over 1,200, from 100 districts to over 400, because of a late behind-the-scenes agreement for House Bill 166 and some of the things that occurred there. So since then, a lot has gone on. But most importantly, we have gotten to the point where our folks, being our community members, our parents, all our stakeholders, our staff, have written our legislators, and we've had great responses from Bill Seitz and Bill Blessing, and they're very supportive of what we're asking for. And the bottom line is we've written and called and asked that we not subsidize private education with public funds, because the way the rules were changed is that any kid in a parochial school could apply for the scholarship, even if they never stepped foot in our district. So what the problem there is, we never even got a chance to educate these kids, yet our funds are being taken. So as late as of an hour ago, we've had some recent changes to EdChoice. We now know that Senate has sent a proposal to the House, and we now know that the House is looking at the following. And what they're looking at is anybody who is currently on EdChoice for a district will be grandfathered. In other words, we had one school last year that was Struble Elementary. 17 kids took advantage of this, so they'll be grandfathered on. But the district will no longer pay for these kids. The state will pay for them. And what it also means is it will all be based on poverty now, and not a report card system that is not fair, not adequate, not equitable, and that it will go to a poverty-based type formula. So currently, it's a 200% poverty-based formula, which a family that makes $58,000 or less would qualify, and they want to raise it to $250,000. So that will raise it somewhere in the 60s. But both ways, the great thing there is the state will fund it and not the school district.
Okay, so as of the most up-to-date report, what you're saying, even as recent as an hour ago, this information was coming in. And I'm positive that, based on what you've said, that Northwest Local is just on a huge list of districts around the state trying to react to this. But how will you, as a school district, react and respond and prepare for the impact of EdChoice overall? I mean, specifically, what is Northwest Local doing in order to deal with the fallout of this? Do you have any next steps?
Our next steps are continue to talk to our legislators, because if they kept things as it was going to be, that was going to cost our district $4 million. And so you have to look at how you can reduce $4 million or how you can add $4 million. We just passed the levy. Our community showed they supported us. And the last thing they wanted is for Todd Bowling and Northwest Local Schools to come out and say, we need another levy because we now have to pay for EdChoice kids. So right now, if they go the way they're leaning and they have 60 days to fix it, they are very aware that if they wait till April 1st to fix this, that how do we plan for staff? How do we plan for the amount of students we'll have, whether it's more or it's less? And that's why I think they're moving pretty quickly on it, because they know they are drastically affecting public schools, and we cannot plan for the future the way it currently stands.
I speak with such a very lengthy list of school districts on a regular basis, not only Ohio schools, it's everywhere. But I must say that public education at the school district level has become so difficult to manage because of the funding, what I'll call uncertainties. This EdChoice thing is a very challenging hit, and hopefully this works out. As things progress or unfold on this topic, would it be okay to say we can plan on revisiting this EdChoice topic on a future episode?
Oh, exactly. And we will. And the one thing I want to do is make sure that our stakeholders, I thank them for everything they've written or called and talked about, because it's really made a difference with our legislators. We've had a great movement in the state of Ohio, and it couldn't have been done without our staff, our parents, and our community members writing letters and calling legislators. So we will definitely revisit it.
Yeah, well, I think you giving credit where credit's due is certainly appropriate. That's wonderful that you have your stakeholders that are stepping up to do this. Wonderful news, and I'm sure we'll talk about this on a future episode. Stephanie, let me turn to you. Based on your experience and observations, if I were to ask you to define early literacy and then tell me the importance of early literacy, what would you say?
The definition of early literacy would engage students or children in activities that will, in the future, lead to them reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So these are activities and behaviors that parents can engage with babies right out of the womb, all the way up until they reach school age.
You know, reading is such an important part of an effective strategy for student success overall. I have had teachers and administrators on my show many times over the years, and they all seem to believe that the reason this is true is because between kindergarten and third grade, students are learning to read, and from then on, they are reading to learn. Do you believe this is a good summation of what needs to happen and why?
I do believe that is a good summation. I think the one thing that families may not realize this has an impact on students is the birth to 5 years, that those are very crucial to the success of students once they reach kindergarten age. Reading does not begin as a kindergartner. Reading and the early literacy skills are very impactful from the ages of 0 to 5. So things that families can do at home can help students when they come into the school age to refine their skills, but they really need those early experiences that families, obviously, because students aren't in school yet unless they attend a preschool, we're relying on families to really engage their children at home.
Yes, I understand. Well, specifically, what is Northwest Local Schools doing to promote the engagement of parent involvement in early literacy? Because in reality, it's literacy success that makes it all work as a partnership between parents and teachers ultimately as time goes on, right?
Correct. So what we are doing here in Northwest Local Schools, we just kicked off an initiative, a reading challenge for the months of February, March, April, and even into May. And what we're encouraging our families to do is to read with students in the evenings and or read to them in the evening. So we're asking families to engage for at least 20 minutes a day in some type of literacy activity with their children. We have a preschool that we run here in Northwest Local Schools. And in that preschool, we are working with students as young as 3 on early literacy behaviors, helping them recognize print, helping them learn from their environment around them, reading to them, helping them learn the beginning stages of writing. So we are not only educating the students we do have in our preschool, but we are reaching out to all families, regardless of grade level, kindergarten through 5th grade and even above, to make sure that in the evenings that they are listening to their children read, that they are reading to their children. We're never too old to have a book read to us, as many of us listen to books on tape. So even up in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, students are still can benefit from having a book read to them.
Well, let me ask you, I do have one final question for you on this topic, though. How often should students read and how long each day?
Well, I think students should be engaged in some type of literacy activity in all hours that they're awake. So whether that's speaking, listening, reading, or writing, I think that they should be engaged the entire time they're awake. However, I understand that there is a lot of screen time that's going on for our students today. So what we're asking families to do is to engage from 20 minutes to an hour each evening in some type of literacy activity. So that could be writing, it could be reading, but some type of activity and discussion among families. Also plays a key role in developing literacy skills. It increases vocabulary. So we're asking for families to just dialogue with each other instead of being on their phones or on a screen for the majority of their evenings. So these are very easy activities that families can do. So we're hoping for 20 minutes to an hour, but in reality, if they could engage all evening long for the 3 hours or 4 hours before they go to bed at night, if they could be engaged in some type of literacy activity for that entire time, that would be an even bigger bonus.
Wow. Some great points. I must say, each of these two topics today on the show are so important to the process of assuring student success. I would suggest that parents stay engaged with their students' schoolwork and stay informed about issues impacting Northwest local schools. We are absolutely trying to help that cause by providing meaningful discussions each month on the podcast. Todd, Stephanie, I appreciate you sharing this information today, and I want to thank both of you for joining me here on SuperChat.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thank you.